Hello, I'm the Angry Spork. The dead are rising, and innocent souls risk being plunged into eternal fire. To save them, we need the teamwork of a Gotham vigilante and an assassin pulled from the underworld. Working together, meeting for the first time, again. I'm taking issue with Batman Spawn. Not to be confused with Spawn Batman, as this one is written by Doug Monk, Chuck Dixon, and Alan Grant, with art by Klaus Janson and Steve Buccellato. Let's see if this comic makes us want to turn the page or turn our heads. The cover sees the pair in battle-ready stances, Bats looking particularly and almost scarily enthused about fighting what, on the back cover, is one of several skeletons rising from the grave. We open to a splash page as a man in 1587 holds up an infant Virginia Dare, maybe wanting to show off to the sky that she's the 100th member of their Roanoke settlement. The ship that initially brought everyone to the North Carolina island left for England and returned 3 years later with supplies and more settlers. Yet the entire village was deserted, even, some say, of its buried dead. Vegetation and game were plentiful and local natives were friendly, yet not a soul of the 100 remained. The only clue to their whereabouts was the word Croatone, either etched or burned in a tree higher than any man could climb. So I guess no one knew how to build a ladder?
Hey. No sneaking history lessons into my comics. I came here for people in costumes beating up criminals with impunity from the law.
There was one other odd clue, but not one anyone could see from ground level. A pentagram-shaped clearing in the woods surrounding the settlement. In present-day Gotham, Matches Malone is looking for one Virgil Dare, a man no one has seen for about 3 weeks. After paying for his location, he sheds the disguise, revealing the batsuit. Bats had been on the trail of bigger fish for a while, people who'd smuggled in explosives and bought property previously owned by his alter ego, and Virgil was his best lead.
Bombs and buildings. A bad combination, if ever the twain were permitted to meet.
What an odd thing to say. You know, this is your internal monologue, right, Bruce? You don't have to try and impress anyone.
After a page of Spawn in his New York alley, poetically lamenting his cursed existence and wishing for his old life and face, we jump back to Gotham where Batman follows Dare for a while by car, because nothing says inconspicuous like a car with a big old bat symbol on it. He continues his pursuit by grapnel line eventually, and comes upon Gotham Tower, a dream project soon to be completed in the name of the late Simon Vesper. Spawn reads about the tower in a stray newspaper, and flashes back to a time before his death, remembering that he was paid to kill Vesper. Mention was made of crooked construction that his clients didn't want finished, but beyond that, details of the contract escape him, so he decides to head to Gotham for answers.
If you thought you had a rough time getting through airport security, try lugging around all those chains. And since it's a living suit, I wouldn't be surprised if the airline charged him for an extra seat.
Virgil Dare is meeting with some people about explosives, noting that they did lose some a while back, but they have enough for an upcoming job. Batman swings to the tower, recalling Vesper's death 6 years back, that he was unable to save him, couldn't catch the killer, and that Simon's body disappeared from the scene of the crime. In the here and now, he crashes Dare's meeting, leading with the demand to know what he's up to, but still knocking out his goons in short order. Dare tells him he's acting on Vesper's behalf, that until a body shows up, even after more than half a decade, he's only missing. Explicit instructions were left for how to proceed with Gotham Tower, and without proof he's done anything illegal, there's not much Batman can do except leave before being charged with trespass and assault. Kinda weird to read a story where Batman concedes to that notion, but he does promise to return as he exits through a window. Nearby, Spawn has arrived in the city, but aside from locating the tower, he's not sure how he should proceed. In Potter's Field, a graveyard for the unknown dead, a skeleton emerges from his grave, absorbs the flesh of a rat and a feline, and begins looking human again.
Edward and Alphonse Elric are infuriated at this complete disregard for equivalent exchange.
Oops, my mistake, false alarm. He, actually has a trail of drained critters there. That's one hungry corpse, who turns out to be none other than Simon Vesper, reported on the news, man that was pretty quick, as having miraculously appeared in time for the opening ceremony for Gotham Tower. As Batman heads there to find out where he's been for 6 years, Spawn happens upon the cliché newscast in a store window with the same report, detecting evil within the tower. Speaking of, Vesper is taking Virgil Dare to the basement, not to inspect the foundation, but to kill his henchman. Bat swings into the building, noticing how oddly empty it is for some place that's supposed to have a grand opening pretty soon. He spots the blood-spattered elevator, which most people wouldn't go and inspect, but he's Batman, and he finds a fingerprint on the basement button. Of course, he presses it and heads down, where he finds Dare's body, inside a blood-drawn pentagram with a like-written word, Croatone. As he exits through one of the higher-story windows, guess it was better for swinging from, he's noticed by Spawn, thinking pointy ears may be part of all this.
Don't believe in coincidences. Not a bit of use for them. Everything's inevitable.
What another odd thing to say.
On a 2-page spread, Simmons attacks the vigilante, thinking he's another demon from the fiery pits after him for some reason. When they reach the ground, Bats' confusion does little to sway Spawn, but when he tries using some magic attack, nothing happens, leaving him distracted enough for Batman to take the offensive. Even though he's getting beaten senseless, it makes him feel alive, and he realizes he just attacked a mortal man, so his suit held him back.
Why are you in Gotham, and how soon are you leaving?
Bruce fought tooth and nail to have that exact phrase put on the city's welcome sign, and that's why he got kicked off Gotham's tourism board.
Spawn's here for Vesper, and Bats tells him about the occult scene in the tower basement, as well as enough generators to power half of downtown Gotham. Then they exchange names.
What do I call you? You can call me Al.
The undead businessman in question is currently ignoring his employees' warning about their intended arson that would be easily traced back to him, and he says that they were paid for a job and that's what they should do. He's not scared by earthly authorities, as he acts on behalf of a more demonic one, having once offered his master 100 souls, and now intends to give him 100,000 for his unholy army, all in hopes of getting his own corner office in hell or something.
Who could it be? Who could be Simon's Dark Lord? Who would want thousands of innocent souls for a personal army?
Could it be Satan?
Meanwhile, the Hellspawn and Batsy are looking over a map, the latter pointing out properties Vesper's company recently purchased, when the back computer signals from the car that it's completed a search.
You have a computer in there too?
I mean, the cup holders and the AM/FM radio, those were impressive enough. But a computer in a car? That's just mind-boggling.
Seriously, this was the early 90s, so that kind of thing would be pretty surprising. But it's only a link-up with the car from a secure location, and while Spawn continues with the map, Batman confirms that the word he saw written in blood was part of one of America's oldest mysteries, the disappearance of the Roanoke settlers. Though heck, if the world's greatest detective can find the connection. He scoffs at Al's suggestion it was someone signing their work, and then Al shows him what resulted from his analysis of the map. He cut out a perfect pentagram from the locations Vesper now owns.
You know, you didn't have to cut my map. I have a bat Sharpie you could have used. Isn't that just a regular bat Sharpie?
Gotham Power and Light begins detecting blackouts in various neighborhoods before losing power themselves, all thanks to Simon Vesper using the current age's own form of dark magic, hacking. Kinda makes you wonder what equivalent he'd use for internet trolls. The 2 stars of the comic note how Gotham Tower, thanks to a powerful generator, is all lit up, as is only enough of Gotham to form a pentagram in light, and fire when some buildings start exploding. Meanwhile, at the opening ceremony in Vesper's Tower, it's beautiful.
People are in danger, you twit. I know rich folk are stereotyped in, among other ways, being so full of themselves and disconnected from everyday people that they lose touch with reality, but this is an extra layer in a 3-bean casserole of stupid.
Anyway, Vesper's introduced, and he begins a speech about how a new world is dawning, and they'll soon be joined by an underclass they've long ignored, as we go back to Fillmore Park, and more skeletons begin rising from their graves. They are not diseased. They are past that. They are not the homeless, for they have homes. They'll join us soon, and we will join them, and we shall be brother and sister under one banner, and we shall carry Gotham into a new age.
Carrying? Is that like lifting? I don't know. That seems like work. Can I just pay someone to do it for me?
Bats isn't sure what any of this has to do with terrorism, one of his earlier suspicions in this mystery, but he'll find out, not heeding Al's warning about a lack of understanding of the forces at work as he grapnels up the building. The charbroiled Simmons, however, options to check out the basement, while across Gotham reports are coming in from people suffering from the blackout, including the skeletal horde being mistaken for a gang of teenagers, maybe because they moan a lot and want someone to do their laundry. Commissioner Gordon lights up the bat signal, which has its own power supply thanks to a certain cowled someone's insistence. "I only hope the man's working tonight."
I was going to make a joke about how ludicrous it would be for Batman to not be on patrol, but there are several examples of him taking extended time off, even as much as a year, to either reflect on his mission, decide if he wants to be a cape anymore, if his back is broken, and not all those times included a stand-in wearing his costume.
The gala audience within the tower become confused when Vesper's speech turns to talk of the dead joining the living and their souls belonging to the ultimate evil. I mean, maybe he's just stretching for a laugh, but I can't tell. When one man questions Simon's sanity, he pokes his eyes out, and that just looks painful to look at, and the blood on the next page doesn't help. Three Stooges lied to us, people. Batman makes an entrance, demanding answers for everything he's done, but Vesper's initial response is to throw a lamp. Yeah, that's a bright idea. Spawn inspects the blood pentagram, now shy one Virgil Dare corpse for some reason, and sees in it demons and the souls of those he's killed. He almost gives in to the temptation to be absorbed into the realm of the damned, but a woman's scream reminds him of love and he gets back on track. I don't know if that woman is supposed to be his wife, or just happens to be a stranger that reminds him of her, and found renewed sense of purpose. While Al starts working some funky magic, Batman discovers Vesper is more formidable than he appears, able to punch the Dark Knight into the air and toss him around with ease. A fire breaks out and the guests attempt to escape, but Vesper begins absorbing them similarly to how he absorbed the animals earlier, reducing them to skeletons, but this time himself transforming into some kind of demonic red troll. Spawn arrives and holds him in place, and it's then that Vesper reveals that he'd called the hit out on himself 6 years ago. Turns out the businessman is naught but a shell used by the true mastermind of the entire catastrophe, the exiled demon Croatoan, his true form now revealed.
First he turned from a skeleton to a human guy, then into a cave troll with sunburn, and now a Fing Fang Foom knockoff. Is this a Batman comic or an episode of DBZ?
Apparently able to see into the future, Croatoan hired the mob to hire Simmons to kill Vesper and use his blood for the Gateway site. Then his body was hidden, cleverly in a graveyard for unidentified bodies, until he'd need it again upon the tower's completion. The intended 100,000 victims are his real endgame to please Satan, slaughtered by his undead minions within his pentagram, and Spawn is just a welcome bonus. Al reveals he magically altered the pentagram of light into a different shape, specifically a smiley face. Gee, I hope no one confuses this for a Joker plot. But it didn't matter since it was only needed to initially open the gates, whereas keeping them open is a matter of Croatoan's will, controlling the undead horde to attack the living. Seeing his new ally so overwhelmed he can barely say help, Batman tosses percussion caps that give Spawn the chance to strike back with all his power. He remembers her face, and that feeling of love is the extra oomph he needs that brings their enemy down. He's too weak to chase after the fleeing demonic essence, and as Vesper's smaller demon form falls, the gateway slams shut.
Don't let the door to hell hit you on the way out. In is fine. It's supposed to hurt anyway.
Funny how his future vision didn't see that coming. Spawn uses his magic to influence the skeleton army to return to their graves.
Excuse me, I'm John Smith.
John Smith, 1882.
My mistake.
Soon after, as the pair look out at the smiley face lights, a more pleasant beacon in an otherwise grim world, The comic ends with them opining on what makes one person good, another evil, with Bats citing a quote that basically says that good and evil have less to do with how one interacts with others and more with the interactions with oneself. As the Caped Crusader swings away to take care of his city, giving without asking for anything in return and wearing his true face unapologetically, Spawn figures that's the kind of man he wants to be.
And that was Batman Spawn. While far from perfect, it's at least more enjoyable than the Miller McFarlane book I reviewed previously. The title heroes actually spend more time fighting the enemy than each other, and they don't resort to schoolyard name-calling. What a wacky idea!
The story is mostly fine. An interesting setup with the man returning from the dead and the long-laid plans with pieces that fit well enough, and even the tie-in with the Roanoke mystery was good. Naturally, the real-life incident isn't as fantastic, and the writers did change certain details, such as the word Croatoan being on a tree instead of a post, and that even homes had been dismantled.
Turns out it was the only way to escape all those telemarketers calling 20 times a day.
I thought the art was alright, maybe a bit grainy in some areas for my taste, and it remains an entertaining enough read even now, even though there were times the dialogue got atypical with some poetic flourishes. The bit with the woman in hell and Spawn's references to love seemed to come out of nowhere. Maybe it makes more sense to someone who's read the character's mythos, but someone just jumping into this is probably going to be pretty confused. I know I was. Also a little surprising is that Al looking to Batman as a role model. They didn't seem to really get to know each other very well, and he can't have really observed Batman in action all that much, so maybe one or more of the writers were just embellishing their own love of Batman. And I gotta say, the wraparound is just a little bit misleading, as neither one of them actually fight the skeletal army, though that would have been kinda cool to see. Maybe this is a minor thing, but it feels like one of the bigger minor things. If Vesper's head was blown off when Simmons killed him, why was his skull intact when his skeleton rose from the grave? Answer me that, science!
It's not the best book I've ever reviewed, but compared to the other crossover with these characters, it may as well be Shakespeare. Which might explain the weird poetry. I'm the Angry Spork, and man have I got issues.